Hey guys, this is Gunther from LRTimelapse.com, and today I'm going to make a very basic tutorial. It's the first one in a series of new tutorials I'm going to make to explain LRTimelapse 2 step by step. So this first tutorial will lead you through the very basics. It's suited for beginners in the first place, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the concepts behind LRTimelapse and how the data between LRTimelapse and Lightroom will travel. I'm going to do more advanced tutorials soon where I explain the other workflows, for example with Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Bridge, or After Effects as well. But today we are going to focus to the most simple workflow with Lightroom. So yes, this is the LRTimelapse main screen. So you see a folder chooser here on the left, and that's where you find all your photos of your hard drives, and please put every time-lapse sequence you shot into one dedicated folder. That's very important. And if you then have your sequences here, you just click on the first sequence you're going to process, and I'm going to use this one. It's a short one. You see the number of images in each sequence here in parentheses behind the name of the folder. So first, the previews of all images are being loaded here. So you just saw the progress bar going forward, and the first time you do this for a sequence, it's going to take a little bit more time because LRTimelapse will cache those previews for faster access in the future, and every succeeding time it will be much faster. So now you can hit the play button and you can see your time-lapse video in a rough preview, and you can even pop out this preview window here, and then you can see it a little bigger. Okay, let's pop it in again. Now you have a table here on the right side. This is your files, your single frames you just shot. Doesn't matter which format it is. In this example I've converted to DNG, but you can use all kind of raw files, and you can use JPEG as well. So the first thing we are going to do with this sequence, with every sequence, is to hit the initialize button. These buttons here resemble the workflow from left to right. So you start on the top left, you go over here, and then we will continue here, and I'm going to show you all the whole process now. Hitting initialize is very easy. Just click on it, and now it says initializing metadata. That means LRTimelapse is going to fill up metadata, all development properties of your images, with meaningful default values. And in the second step it's transferring EXIF data, so this means it's going to read the width and height of the images, the date, time, and so on, so that this is available here as well. So once you've done with this, you can have a look at your table, and you see here is a one column saying exposure 2012, and this is the new process introduced with Lightroom 4. That's why you see Lightroom 4 mode here. So if you are using Lightroom 3 or an older version of the Adobe Creative Suite, so you go to settings, and then you can set your process version here. You can choose between Lightroom 3 or Lightroom 4. It's important that you do this before even initializing the first sequence. One thing you might want to know is that this tick here on hide unchanged columns, it means that if you remove it, you're going to see all the metadata we have, and this is the crop values. They are set to default to 16:9 ratio. This is this orange rectangle here, and you have a white balance preset, and you have a whole lot of zero values here, and the other values are defaults. We're going to use this as initialization. And so if you click hide unchanged columns again, it will prevent us from seeing all those perimeters where nothing has happened. And exposure, the yellow one here, nothing has happened with it as well. All entries are zero, but this is the parameter you're seeing here in your preview. It's this yellow curve here, and later we'll see that you can choose between different curves here, where you can choose the parameters that we are going to change later. So the basic purpose of all this is that we want to make smooth transitions between the editing of the first and other in-between images. So that's what all this is about. And there is another curve here in the preview. This is this blue one here, and the blue curve is the mean brightness. That's this column here in the table, and the mean brightness means how bright is this image in overall. So you can see the blue curve here is lower and raises up until here, and then it goes down again. So this is because in this part here we have the black bottom here, the sand, that's much darker than the rest, so the overall brightness here is lower than here. And for our time-lapse analysis, it doesn't matter that the sand here is darker. What we want to consider is how the brightness of the sky goes down, the overall brightness of the image, regardless from this bottom part here. So this is the second thing. You're going to define a reference area, and if you click here, nothing else happens than a dialog that tells you what to do. It says click and drag inside the preview panel to define an area that reflects a characteristical brightness trend of your sequence. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to drag a rectangle here in the upper part, because that's what we are interested in. Now LRTimelapse is recalculating the brightness values to only mirror the brightness in this area that is inside this rectangle we just draw. So you can see here, now we have a blue curve that goes down, 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 very straight, and reflects the overall falling darkness here. So that's what we want. In the first part here, you see it's a little bit darker here because our reference area is too low here. So I'm going to draw it again, a little bit only in the upper part. Now it tells me we have already defined a reference area, and this is because in later tutorials I'm going to show you how to animate this reference area. So in this case we don't want to animate it, we want a static reference area. So I'm clicking on static, and now he's calculating again our reference, and now you see the straight line from here down to here, and you see it's very, very smoothly getting darker. Okay, that's the second step. The third step is a keyframes wizard. The keyframes wizard is only available for licensed users, because he does a lot of magic for saving you some precious time when defining the keyframes. But in our first example here, I'm not going to use the keyframes wizard at all. I'm going to set only two keyframes, and and I'm going to use the create keyframes even spaced function here. So I'm clicking on this, and now I'm saying I want 2 keyframes, one at the beginning and one at the end. We're going to consider the first frame of the sequence and the last frame, and then we're going to make a transition between those both. And so we don't need the keyframes wizard, but you know that at this place of the workflow you have to define your keyframes either with the keyframes wizard or manually. You can as well set keyframes by simply clicking into the first column here. That's different ways to accomplish the same thing. Okay, now we have 2 keyframes, and so we're going to hit save. This is going to write all our XMP data to XMP files. So that's basically it for the first part of our workflow. And now it's time to go to Lightroom and edit our keyframes. This is what this symbol here says. So I'm going to Lightroom, and you might want to go to the grid view, and this is our sequence. So normally you would now import your sequence into Lightroom if it's not there already. So you go to the import dialog and make sure that you are on add, and then select your folder where your images are, and then you add them to the catalog. And this will cause Lightroom to read the XMP files along with the image data, and you will see that your initialization we just did will be already in Lightroom if you added the images to the catalog. In this case, however, here we already had the images in the catalog, so I'm going to hit Ctrl A to select everything here in grid mode, and then go to metadata, read metadata from files. And this is going to apply our XMP data to the images here. As you can see, the crop is changing, and we have that plus minus sign. Let's see what the keyframes look like. The first image here is our keyframe, and it has a star rating now, and the last image as well. That's what the keyframes look like in Lightroom, and that's pretty cool because it allows us to set a filter to those keyframes by clicking on the greater or equal 1 star filter here. So after doing this, we only have those 2 keyframes left for editing. So now we select the first keyframe, we go to develop, and now you can develop your image as usual. First thing we might want to consider the crop. The crop is automatically set to 16:9 because Lightroom will only export in that format. But you can as well turn off this in the LRTimelapse settings if you want. Now we can just white balance a little bit. Let's assume we start with a very warm sunset look here. I'm only doing a very rough adjustment of the settings here, maybe a little bit of clarity and increase the vibrance a bit. And what's important as well is you might want to use the graduated filters. They give you cool opportunities, especially in Lightroom 4, because you can tone your upper part different than your lower part with those filters. So you can do make cool effects, making the lower part a little bit warmer and the upper part a little bit more blue. And those 2 gradients here have come from the initialization out of LRTimelapse. So you should definitely use those 2 gradients because those are the ones that will get animated by LRTimelapse. You can even turn them or make animations so that in the first frame they have this angel and in the last frame that, or However, now I'm going back to my grid view. Hit G is for grid view, or this here. Now we want to copy our develop settings from the first keyframe. It's photo, develop settings, copy settings, or what's much quicker is Control-Shift-C, just remember this. And make sure that you check all here, so every single parameter is going to be copied to the second and last keyframe. So here it will be photo, develop settings, paste settings. It's Control-Shift-V. So this serves us as a starting point to edit the last frame, and you can see we overdid it a bit with our editing, but we can keep most of the parameters here. I'm going to decrease the exposure, and I'm definitely going to make things cooler and change my temperature here and decrease the vibrance as well. So this is a little bit too much, but so this looks good in my opinion. So now we have a very bluish blue hour look here, and if you want, you could even change the crop of the image. Then you would get a slight camera movement, the so-called Cam Burns effect, where we would be zooming in to our image, or even make a rotation or whatsoever. Okay, so this is our last keyframe, and if I go back with the G key to our grid view, you can clearly see they are pretty different, those two edits. And now you select both here again in grid view, and now we are going to make the opposite that we did before. We are going to save the metadata to files to update the XMP data of those two images. And now we can go back to LRTimelapse, and we have just finished the first line here, and coming from Lightroom, and now you hit reload, and this is going to update the keyframes with the new metadata. The rest of the images will stay as they are, and now you can see we have the two keyframes. In the yellow one, you remember this is the exposure curve. We have increased the exposure in the first one and decreased it for the last one, and now you see all other changed parameters here, only those that we have changed. We have changed the crop, we have changed the white balance, the highlights, shadows, and so on. So these are the parameters here. You can choose them. You can, for example, go to white balance, and then you see the keyframe for white balance here is higher than at the end. And in our table you see those changed parameters as well. Here you see they have been changed, and the bottom they have been changed as well. So next thing is hit the auto transition. It will calculate all in-between values. That's it. Now you can see the end white balance tint, for example, here was 18, and at the beginning it was 57, and LRTimelapse calculated all in-betweens for all of those parameters, including the crop values. If I go to my exposure, you see the yellow curve or line is now going down here. If you go to the white balance temperature or the white balance tint, and so on. So now you can see that even the crop, when moving here, this is the orange rectangle, is getting smaller and bigger. So all our in-between values are now animated, so we're going to get a smooth transition from start to the end. The next step, it's the deflicker. I'm going to skip it in this tutorial. I'm going to make another tutorial to show you the deflicker, because in my sequence here I don't have any flicker. The blue curve is very smooth and very straight. There is no bumps in the blue curve. That flickering would cause the blue curve to be zigzag, and the brightness of my images would go up and down, but this is not happening here, so I'm skipping the flicker and I'm saving my XMP data. And now the last step is to render the video. To render the video now I have saved all in-between values. I'm going back to Lightroom now, and now it's important that you remove that filter, because when we read in the metadata now we want to read it for every file, even the in-between files here. And now we go to metadata, read metadata from files, and you are going to see that all in-between values with those graduations we just calculated will appear here. We go to the bottom of our sequence. You'll see the last one was very blue, and now you can see here the blue ones. They are updating here our previews. Okay, so you just have to believe me that all in-between values are there, and now we can export the video. To be able to export the video, we use the slideshow module of Lightroom, and we pimp it in that way that we use special templates. Those LRTimelapse templates here, they are available in different frames per second units here. So to be able to use them, just go to LRTimelapse.com, where you downloaded LRTimelapse as well, here in the download section, and there you can find the templates, and there you download the Lightroom time-lapse templates, and there is an installation guide here where you can find instructions how to install them, and even detailed instructions with screenshots can be found in the forum here. So just check this and follow the instructions carefully to install those templates. And you can start with the free ones. They are not giving you so much opportunities here, but you can clearly use the 25 or 30 FPS setting for the slideshow here. And in the second step we're going to export the video. And now take care, you have to choose another preset here for the video preset. Please take care to match the frame rate of the video template here with 25 FPS to the slideshow template you used before. And now I'm going to name this test LRT2, and this is going to export our slideshow as a video. It takes a little bit of time depending on your machine, but it's very easy process, and in the end it's much quicker doing this with Lightroom, and it will give you very good quality as well. It's much quicker than every other method I'm aware of. Let's just recapitulate a little bit the workflow. You start in LRTimelapse, initialize your metadata. Please do this always for every sequence. Then you define the reference area. Then set your keyframes either with the keyframes wizard or with the keyframes create even space keyframes. Then we save, go to Lightroom. In Lightroom, read in the metadata, edit your keyframes, the start images, copy from one to the other one, and then save the metadata again in Lightroom, come back to LRTimelapse, reload, make the transition, deflicker if applicable, and then save XMP metadata, go back to Lightroom, read in the metadata for all images, and export your video. You'll see if you did this a couple of times, it's pretty easy and will lead you to very, very good results, because there is no other method I'm aware of that will allow you to make such different editings in your time-lapse sequences that start with this toning here and end with the blue toning in the blue hour. So this is going to give you very cool effects for your time-lapse. So experiment with those parameters, experiment with the animations that you can do, and we are going to see us in the next tutorial video, where I'm going to explain some of the more sophisticated stuff that you're able to do with LRTimelapse. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you learned something with this tutorial. See you at LRTimelapse.com, and please consider buying a license if you haven't done it, because you help me. That's what I do. I want to help you, and you help me if you buy a license. Thank you very much. Bye bye.